right, welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started this evening. Thank you for joining us for our special called meeting this evening. First up on our action agenda, we have the approval of the FY26 school operating and food service budget. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak on this item? Okay, Dr. Ballinger, Mr. Valentine.
Excellent. I'll pass over to Mr. Ballantyne.
Perfect.
At its meeting last night, the Warren County Board of Supervisors approved their fiscal year 2025-2026 budget, which includes the school operating budget and the school cafeteria fund budget. The school operating budget was approved in the amount of $76,536,765, and the fiscal year 25-26 school food service budget was in the amount of $4,109,667. The local appropriation to the operating budget of $29,400,000 represents a $750,000 increase over this current year's budget. Just to give you a high-level look at what all our budget includes, it basically includes a 3% salary increase for all contracted full-time employees. We level funded all non-labor, except we reduced debt service by the amount that the county took on, and we also decreased Dr. Cosner's budget, since he was so good at negotiating a favorable contract on our custodial services. We were able to reduce his budget by $78,295,000, which basically level funded it, taking into account.
78,000.
78,000. What did I say?
78 million.
Oh yeah.
Amen.
Oh my. Yeah. Well, I was.
Schools are really clean this year.
That's right. That's right.
So what else were we able to do then? We are converting or repurposing a held position, teaching position, into a 12-month nursing coordinator that we've talked about many times and understand the need for, and also increasing the employer contribution to health care by 10.1%. That means that the employees will also see, if they stay on the same plan and tier, their rate would go up 10.1%. That said, the employer's share is much greater, so in real dollars, the employee would see less of a dollar increase on a particular plan than the employer does. So that's it. Now, I haven't broken it out by category yet, because really until we have the budget finalized and solidified, I've got to go back now and we'll do a line item budget, and that'll tell us each category. I know the Board of Supervisors approved the budget and had categorical amounts. When I come to you at the next meeting with what our budget now that's been adopted, once you adopt one, what the categories fall into, we'll probably have to go and ask them to adjust and tweak them. We're not going to move the bottom line, but we may move some from category to category. As a matter of fact, they left some in the debt service category because they weren't sure where that was to go, since we won't be spending anything out of it. So we've got to reallocate that and see where everything falls, and then we'll probably have to go to them and ask them if they can tweak it to move from one category to the other. But again, not the bottom line.
And then that also includes those held positions that we had the previous year, where we also did some repurposing with some positions to where we could get reading specialists, but also, like, for instance, we had that ag position held last year. So it includes putting all of those things back in the budget, so we're able to get those held positions back that were needed.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
I move that the proposed fiscal year 2026 school operating budget in the amount of $76,536,765 and the fiscal year 2026 food service budget in the amount of $4,109,667 be approved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Thank you. Thank you. All right, next up, we have the WCPS 25-26 salary scale approval. Is there anyone here from the public looking to speak on that? Ms. Drake.
Good evening. With the budget, just wanted to finalize our salary scale. I know that we've had a few tweaks. And within the explanation, just kind of put the newest tweaks on there. So the nursing coordinator goes to 12-month, and so we're adding that on there so it's reflective. We then would like to change a title just because coordinator has its own scale, and this individual from this title is not on that scale, so we think it's appropriate to do a title change, so that is added on there. And then also updating our stipend for our video recording. So we are kind of at capacity for the employees that we have and the additional meetings that they'll have to be recording. So we would like to kind of change that up. We did get approved to hire a part-time person for that. So this would be $100 minimum per meeting. So if the meeting is 30 minutes, they get $100. Otherwise, it is $50 per hour, because right now it's just $100 per hour. So this would just make it a little bit more conducive.
You mean it's $100 per meeting?
Per meeting, excuse me. Thank you. Yes, per meeting. That's just the minimum. Otherwise, $50 an hour. So that's also reflective on there. And then just some of the updates that have already been approved, just to go through, is we do have title changes. So just a little bit more detailed for everybody to see what scale they fall on. The format with the days and the education built in, so that way we're not having to do the math for anybody. They can look at our scales and know exactly where they fall. We added grade 39, 7,500 stipend for our social worker. Grade 35 was the nursing coordinator. Grade 42 adjusted their salary so they can meet the salary threshold exemption to be exempt employees. And then our IAs, we added the educational supplement. So this should be hopefully our final going into FY26 for your approval.
Any questions for Ms. Drake? Is there a motion?
I move that the Warren County School Board approve the 2025-2026 salary scales as presented.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Thank you, Ms. Drake. Next up, we have the MOU for the school resource officers. This will be the second reading. I know Sheriff Klein doesn't look like she's here this evening. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on that item? Okay, Dr. Kostner.
Madam Chair, School Board members, thank you. As you know, last meeting, Sheriff Klein did a great job of explaining the differences between the previous MOU and the current MOU that's in front of you for our SROs. Is there any questions, if you've had a chance to look over it, that you see any additions or deletions that need to be made? Again, this is just the second reading. The third reading will bring for final approval.
I didn't receive any questions. Did anyone else receive any questions? No, I haven't.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Wow, I said 30 minutes for those first three items, and we were really ahead of ourselves tonight. So I'd just like to take a quick minute before we move on to our superintendent search firm presentations and just really thank Dr. Ballinger for the 5 years that you've given us here at Warren County Public Schools. You came in during some really difficult times during COVID and seeing us through that and coming out the other side, and I feel like over the last 5 years, you've really done everything you can every day to encourage our students, encourage our staff, and really try to move our school division in a positive direction. We appreciate the work you've done here. We know this is your last meeting, so we just want to wish you well, and we can take a few minutes, and our board just had a little small thank you for you. It's come on, open it here.
I just want to say thank you to the current board members and also past board members that I've been able to work with here in Warren County. It has been a pleasure. Every opportunity is a learning experience, and the things that I value from my time here in Warren County are the relationships that I've been able to forge. I know we've got some WCEA members back there in the back, and you know, I really appreciate the monthly meetings that I had with those groups, and being able to hear the passion about the passion from our teachers, and just being there to support them. I mean, you know, my goal was to come in here and to be a servant leader, to be able to provide our staff with the tools and the resources that are needed. And I feel that we've accomplished some of that, but I think there's still a lot of work to go to do. You know, we've had those conversations about our textbook funds and things of that nature, and just making sure that we get the right resources in the right places to continue to support our staff and our students. And so it has been a privilege. It's been an honor. You know, I will always cherish my time in Warren County. I will cherish the relationships that I built here, and I know that I will be in contact with many of them way on down the road for many years, because that's just, you know, for me, it is about the people. That's why we're here. We're here to serve our community. And I always talk, and I know you guys have heard this, I know my staff has heard this, but you know, a philosophy that I use is Ubuntu. And that comes from the Xhosa and the Zulu tribes, and it means I am because of you, or I am through you. And we are only educators because of the people that we serve. And we need to remember that every day. That without our community, without our students coming in those doors and into those classrooms every day, the buildings wouldn't be here. We would not be teachers. And so we have to remember why we're here, what our calling is. And I tell you, Warren County has a lot of great people and a wonderful staff. And so I again appreciate the opportunity. I wish the board and the Warren County Public Schools the best as they start their search for a new leader, and just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you. We have, well, we actually have some snacks back there if anyone's like gonna settle in for the long haul with this next part. But Dr. Ballinger, you can take a few minutes if you don't want to sit here for our presentations, I
Okay,
imagine.
well, I do appreciate that. I mean, you know, this, let you guys do your work as a board, and so I do appreciate you allowing me to exit early tonight. So I'm thankful, and again, good luck, and you know, I know tomorrow will be my last day, so you know, before I start my new journey, but thank you to everybody, I appreciate it.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think if anybody here wants snacks, they can have them,
Everyone can have snacks.
Thank you.
Thank you. So before we move into our presentations this evening, I just want to give everybody just a little brief overview. Since our meeting last week, I reached out to 5 different superintendent search firms. I heard back from 3 that will be presenting tonight. 1 declined to give us a proposal, and 1 I did not hear back from. The purpose of tonight's presentations are basically to sort of have this open discussion, see what it looks like for our school division to start looking for a superintendent, to look at what that process is gonna look like through each of the individuals who present this evening, and then to sort of decide what's gonna be the best approach, best search for us moving forward. And so first up this evening, we have Dr. Harris and Dr. Kastner are here with BWP, and our board has papers in front of us, and then, yeah, Dr. Kastner will have some more. Thank you. Myers, if you'd like to get started.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we are grateful to have this opportunity to share with you the BWP search process. I begin by letting you know that once you select us to assist you, you make all of the decisions. We make recommendations. As I look at your mission, achieve excellence by sparking inspiration and learning through innovation, I want to be clear that we understand that excellence is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, and intelligent execution in order to turn every obstacle into an opportunity to prepare students for a bright future and support staff. Your mission has to do with excellence. Our purpose and mission in assisting you is to provide you with candidates from which you will choose your next superintendent, and to make your job very difficult in choosing, because the pool will be rich and the match and fit will be exactly what you, the board, and this community want and need in your next superintendent. We follow this particular 4-line statement: once a task is first begun, never leave it until it's done. Be the task great or small, we will do it well. Not at all. We will do it well. You can count on that. Dr. Kastner and I have worked together as associates with BWP over the last 14 years. This is a sample of the superintendent searches that we have facilitated along with school boards in Virginia. You can see the list. Staunton recently, in fact, they appointed their superintendent, announced that superintendent on Monday. Frederick County, Rockingham, Spotsylvania, Hanover, Goochland, we've done that one several times. Alexandria twice, Winchester twice, Danville, Harrisonburg, Hopewell, Chesterfield, Williamsburg, James City, and Prince Edward. These are examples of searches we have done in Virginia, but the list of searches, as you can see, BWP and Associates have done more than 800 searches. Dr. Kastner has done searches literally all over the country. Mine have been confined with him primarily to Virginia, North Carolina, Texas, and Wisconsin. Your search team: Dr. Kevin Kastner, retired superintendent, Albemarle County. Prior to Albemarle County superintendency, he worked in Maryland. He was deputy superintendent in Frederick. He also owns a strategic planning company. I retired as school superintendent in Roanoke City in 2004. I served there for 11 years. Prior to that, I lived in this area. I worked in Fairfax County for 25 years, and I currently am the director of the Virginia Tech School Leaders Institute. Aspiring Superintendents Program is one of the 2 signature programs. And I'm pleased to tell you that among the participants in those 2 programs at Virginia Tech, 77 have been appointed superintendent. Why is that important to tell you? Because it says that Dr. Kastner and I are in touch with high-quality candidates who could be a part of your search and may end up being someone you select. But be clear, they have to apply, they have to match and fit. They have no special preference because we know them. BWP is a national search firm with a national reach, and the 2 of us have extensive knowledge, both having been superintendents in Virginia We also are in touch with other directors around the country, so when there are candidates from other states who are in the pool, we have a way to finding out whether they are the best match and fit. And we again have relationships with colleagues all over the country and beyond. These are the things that we commit to do in personalizing your search. We will tailor the search to your needs. We will identify candidates who match what you and this community tell us you want us to look for in candidates, because we will engage the community extensively. There will be multiple opportunities, which Dr. Kastner will explain in just a moment. And then we will present those candidates to the board. You will then make a decision of who you interview and ultimately who you select. I repeat what I said. We make no decisions, we make recommendations. We do what it is you need us to do to support you in identifying a pool of candidates from which you will choose your next superintendent. And these are the objectives of the way we operate. We establish a process that we will explain to you that supports and helps you, the board, find the best candidates for Warren County. We create community and staff support for the search effort by involving them. We create what we call community engagement. Dr. Kastner will describe that for you. We do aggressive recruiting of high qualified candidates. And finally, successful completion of the search within your timeline and your budget and the expectations that you share with us you want us to look for. The search process that we use is a 4-step process. You will hear from Dr. Kastner, who will walk through that, and we'll be happy to entertain any questions that you have.
Good evening. It's been 5 years since you have had a superintendent search. So you have a whole different group of members of the community. One of you as a board member has been through the search. The others, this will be your first time. And I know that you already know how important it is. Even in strong districts, going through a superintendent search creates a momentum. It creates a synergy. In this particular case, this isn't the ideal time to do a superintendent search. But we have done searches during this timeline. We know how to do it. We know we have some certain things that we can recommend and how to make it as efficient as possible, and still end up with the same quality of candidates that will give you, if anything, a hard time choosing. We just finished the Stanton search. The board chair's point was they couldn't quite figure out how many they wanted to bring on, so they brought 4 to a finalist. And they said all 4 would have made excellent candidates. They did make a decision, and that was public record on Monday night. So we know there's candidates out there. We also know our familiarity with this side of the mountain, the valley. I was an adjunct, or I guess an interim superintendent in Shenandoah. So I do have an understanding because it's different. A search in Virginia with your size of systems is going to be pretty much ending up with a lot of Virginia people or people that used to be from Virginia. This isn't like going into Madison, Wisconsin and doing a search there where it's going to be a little bit more national. And that does not affect the quality of the candidates. As Dr. Harris has explained, the aspiring superintendent program and the groups that we meet with each year, actually around 30 of them, and I know he's been involved with it, and I don't know, was it 14 years, Wayne? How many? 20 years? They're all stellar. They're all good, and they're Many of them are ready, and that's up to you as a board to choose how ready they are. Now, the superintendent search process itself, whoever you're going to end up selecting are going to have the components that I will talk to you about. Now, you have our proposal. Our proposal is pretty detailed, and it will follow pretty much what we're having here, but my purpose here is just to give highlights to this proposal. And so you have in the folder some information that I will refer to as we go through it, but it isn't necessary that you follow it. You have a sample of the PowerPoint. You also have a brochure which describes the 4 steps in greater detail, but I'd like to try to give some context. You start out in the very beginning with talking about specifications, trying to talk about how this is going to work for your community in engaging people, identifying skill sets for your next superintendent that come now from the people that are immediately going to be influenced by this with the board and the new superintendent's partnership. So we're dealing with a whole different group than we might have 5 years ago. We're going to try to work with a leadership profile that's going to be driven by the data on the information we have heard from the community, including board members. And in doing that, we'll end up having a profile and an announcement vacancy current to the information that we will receive within the next month or 2 of the process. In doing that, the minute we're hired, we start recruiting candidates and putting it on our website. If we do community engagement, which we think and you notice is a very critical part, because this is a partnership, and we're going to interview board members. You will help select the different groups that we would be meeting with and your stakeholders, internal and external. We would have open forums where anyone in the public can have access to listening to the presentations. We will have an online survey that we will figure out the most efficient ways. If we need to have it in more than one language, whatever your protocols are, we'll probably end up with 500 to 1,000 people that will participate in that. We encourage to try to figure out how we will do students, which will be trickier over the summer, but we'll find a way. And in doing those strategies, we'll collect data, and we'll end up actually giving you a report. The community engagement report itself will talk about the quantitative information from the surveys, and when we take notes, what is said from the people, not from us. That becomes public record in the presentation and in the transparency that we would have. We'll have the survey, we'll also have the data that we receive that will lead to the leadership profile. So you create this paper trail, and you use that to when we present it to the public, if anyone else might have something that they say, well, this isn't quite right, well, really, they'd be arguing against their own words. But in that sense, there you create this and the transparency that you want to have, but also the engagement you want to have with the people that is critical. These same people will be the people that will help onboard the new superintendent and try to be members of the community that would be part of moving forward as a district. In the recruitment itself, trying candidates, you advertise. We would recommend that the advertisement itself be a 30-day process. We would concentrate on normal advertising outlets. It's in the report. We also feel that we use the website. We also, our BWP website is used. We also do the Virginia School Superintendents Association. And whatever board you want to have, if you have places that you think we should advertise, we would use your sources of trying to get the information to them. And we have a lot of personal contacts. A lot of this is just from knowing people. We do not have a stable of candidates. And frankly, a lot of people aren't necessarily the best match and fit as you go through the 136 school divisions in Virginia. So that's going to vary about the data that you have in your leadership profile. In doing this and going through the advertising plan, we're also trying to market your district. I recall as I see the mountains there, I feel I'm back in Shenandoah, because we're always showing the same mountain ranges in the south. And people have to appreciate that. But also at the same time, in marketing your district, your location, you can, say you have some influence between Northern Virginia, mine, you also have influence right here around this area, whether it's Winchester, Shenandoah, whether it's right here in your county. We use this to try to market, talk about your district, and in the sense now, and one of the things we want to tell you, when we do the community engagement process, we ask 3 questions. Each group, what are the strengths of your school district? What are the challenges your district is facing? And what are the qualities and characteristics you'd like to see in the next superintendent? So you're coming in with a context. There's some schools that you need to improve your performance on. You'll be looking for people that have data that have shown that they can show that they have improved student performance. It doesn't mean that even if you have a lot of things going for you, you're still looking for the momentum of your next superintendent with the board to continue to move forward. So in doing that, we are going to be talking about the strengths, but we're also going to be talking about the challenges from the information we receive from your community and even board members. So that's the context that you're going to do, that when you're trying to find that next person, it's going to be your next leader. When we get into assessments, everybody has to apply through the BWP website. From that website, the application process is quite detailed. A lot of people give great references. We go beyond that. We have to go deeper. We get into the idea that we actually will do Google searches, background information, informal and formal checks. We don't want any surprises. You don't want any surprises. In our track record, if you've talked to any of the people, the board chairs, and other people in the district, that we have a very stellar reputation in regard to that. And that's what you're counting on. And in doing that, when we go into the assessment, when we get to the point of trying to recommend candidates to the board, we try to go beyond this. I would have to say that Wayne and I've done over 60 searches. Over 35 Wayne and I have done right here in Virginia. So in that, we do definitely get to read between the lines. And we try to, and even though we might have 30 candidates, we want to get it down to probably 4 to 6 that we would recommend to the board that are your best match and fit. And that's what you're asking us to do. In doing this also, if it gets to the point that we are going to present candidates to the board, we're also going to do protocol training with the school board on effective interview process. There are certain things you can't say. You don't want to get in a suit because you made a comment about, well, how old are you? Well, there's a lot of different things, and there's a lot of subtle ways you can find this information. But when we present to you, and we present to the candidates, we have their applications, we have all their references, we have their letters of interest, their resume, we even have their transcripts. All that's going to be there. You'll be able to have that in a very transparent way, and we actually will give you potential sample interview questions. When we get to the actual report, either there's 2 ways you can get it. We can give it to you hard copy, or we can do it in a data file. Whatever it is, we're going to want to emphasize the importance of confidentiality. You're going to notice on the right-hand side that there are key decisions the school board need to direct us in. That isn't for tonight. Tonight we're interviewing for the job. If we were to come back in the next meeting, we would then ask your direction. And we would also give you the recommendation, in order to maximize the search, it should be confidential. 95% of the searches here in Virginia are confidential. I go to South Carolina. The 3 finalist candidates' names are in the public, so we have less applicants because people don't necessarily want to risk the exposure. In Virginia, we usually can maximize the pools because most boards will take the recommendation of having it confidential. But then when we present all this information, we get to the point of helping you figure out your interview process, and we're trying to stay within a context. It would be very difficult to have a new superintendent board before the new school year. You have a very capable person that we know well, that will serve well as your interim to set the table. It's very, in the timeline, we think, in the end of October, it's very possible we could have someone here by November. We're going to be asking you other general information if we have that, if we get the job, and if you have a July 2nd meeting, then all of a sudden, we will be talking about more of the details that would be used to talk about the recommendation. We think the scope of the, I guess, the product we gave you as far as the proposal will go into other details. But at this point, we're working within this timeline. It's somewhat expedited, but it's doable, and we have done this before. And we would work with you on that. And then we get to the point of back to the best match and fit. Wayne, as I've gone over this, is there anything else that you'd like to maybe put on this?
I think you covered it. What questions do you have? What other information do you need so that you'll choose us to assist you?
Obviously, we're talking to other people tonight.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have your thing that you believe is your thing that other people don't have. What is it? I mean, I've worked with search firms before, and everything you said, it all makes sense. It sounds great. It has a good plan. But what makes you stand out from, maybe you do or don't know the other people we're talking about, but what's the one thing that stands out that would make us say, we have to go with these guys?
I think the record of success speaks for itself. When you look at the work that we've done and how many superintendents have stayed because they were good match and fit. The other thing is Dr. Kastner and my experience across multiple levels of education, from grade school through higher education, is roughly 112 years. I think that experience speaks for itself and our success along the way. And we commit to do excellent work.
I believe it's our reputation, but if you would call, particularly school board chairs in your immediate area that you've seen, ask about our work, and I think you'll find that they will confirm the reputation. And again, we think that there's other firms, and they try to do a good job too. This is, I guess, your practice in selecting the firm, and then your practice in selecting a superintendent. And so this is just part of the process. But we do feel, actually I feel good that there's competition, and we're here to, I guess, make your choice hard. Thank you for the question.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Kastner and Dr. Hughes? Thank you. We appreciate you guys coming this evening. So we have a Zoom call that's going to take place at 7, so we have 20 minutes. I know this never happens with us, but here we are tonight, so everybody can just hold tight for a bit.
So we want to take a break?
Yeah, we can take a break, an official break.
Make some more questions.
Have some food. Hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kristen Pence. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is Dr. Ralph Ferry from McPherson and Jacobson is going to give our next presentation.
Can you folks hear me?
Can we
Yes.
turn it up a little bit?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. I apologize for the fact of Friday night when I'm traveling, so I wanted to make sure that I had the opportunity to speak this evening. So thank you very much. I did send you the PowerPoint in terms of our people that cover on the proposal. So what would be best is you could look at that at any time, but I'd rather spend the time having a conversation with you about our search services, about our firms, and how we can work with you going forward. Does that format work for you? And then we could open up for question and answer.
Yes, I just want to let the board know that I forwarded the PowerPoint earlier today, so it'll be in your email. Yeah. Got it.
Very good. So, McPherson Jacobson is a well-established search firm. We are a national search firm. We have over 130 consultants nationwide. We do have several consultants in your area. We are national recruiters. We work very transparently with our clients. Excuse me. And we believe in authentic engagement of our educational partners, particularly working with you and working with your district. And our track record of successful placements is very strong. I'll review that in a moment. I'm going to go to our processes and just talk about our success rate. We've placed over 1,000 superintendents in searches throughout 45 states. As you mentioned, my name is Dr. Ralph Ferry. I am the Executive Director of the Eastern Region. So I oversee searches from Maine to Florida and from Ohio down through Louisiana. I've personally done a lot of work in Virginia. We just had a very successful search. As a matter of fact, Chris Lauder, who would be one of the consultants working with us on this search, I worked with Chris, and we successfully placed an outstanding superintendent in Lynchburg, Virginia. That superintendent is starting in July. We worked very collaboratively with that board. It was a very successful search. I've done searches in Norfolk, very successful search in Alexandria City. I've worked with the Fairfax Board of Ed in various positions, helping them, particularly with their Director of Food Services and their Chief of Staff. We've done work in Maryland, Washington County, Maryland, and Howard County, Maryland, recently as last year. I've also done searches in small districts, large districts. The largest district was Broward County, Florida. They had approximately 350,000 students at the time. So I led that search. And of course, leading a search in Florida, very challenging due to it being a sunshine state. We could talk about what challenges that presented to us. Most importantly, though, 80% of our placements are still in their positions over the last 5 years. And 60% are in their positions for 10 years, and 40% are in their positions for 15 years. So we take a lot of pride in the importance of longevity in the position, because we believe that translates very well to academic achievement and long-term success. So we will work collaboratively with you. It's your search. We do have a 5-process search protocol. I'll go over that with you now. It's in the PowerPoint. That's the most important part that I would like to highlight with you. In phase 1, we would meet with you and determine how you would want to proceed with the search. We'll talk about what you believe to be the most important criteria in terms of identifying your next educational leader. We'll work with you on identifying the stakeholders and stakeholder groups throughout your county that you would like us to meet with. And we can conduct those meetings in 2 ways or in a hybrid. For instance, in Lynchburg, we had 2 of our consultants spend 3 days in Lynchburg meeting with stakeholder groups throughout the community, and we also conducted Zoom meetings with other individuals who could not attend our meetings with in-person stakeholder meetings. So we'll ask you to help us identify who we should meet with. We'll work with you on establishing the search timeline. And what we normally do is we'll ask you, at what point in time do you want the superintendent to begin his or her work? And we'll back off of that. Normally it takes between 8 and 12 weeks for the search. We can slow that down or speed that up depending upon your needs. We'll determine the advertising venues, ask you to help us determine the salary range, and we'll craft the job posting to initiate the advertisement of the position. So that's our phase one. So we have identified then the stakeholder groups, and in phase two, that's when we come and meet with the stakeholder groups. And in addition to that, we have a collaboration with K-12 Insight, and they will do all the surveying throughout the district for us and for you as well. And there's no cost to the district for that survey. And we will put that survey up in whatever languages you let us know that you believe to be important, so we make sure we reach all stakeholders throughout your county. We develop promotional materials, advertise the vacancy, send out and receive, and start the beginning of receiving application materials. And we will then actively recruit candidates that are specific to the criteria that you identify as a board. Now, let me say this at this point in time. Sometimes we get the question, why do we set the criteria up with you as the board prior to having the stakeholder input? We can reverse that as well. We can do the stakeholder inputs first and then meet with you in terms of identifying the criteria and posting the position. However, that will slow the process down. And particularly as you're going into the summer, we'll have to work out what the logistics would be for that. As the applications come into the home office, we review the applications, we review the files, we conduct very, very in-depth reference checking. Not only do we speak to the references that the applicants put on their applications and share with us, but we go deeper and we'll check into references that they do not include in their application materials. We believe that's very important. In addition to that, prior to presenting any candidates to you, the shortlisted candidates, we will do all of the formal background checking, educational, criminal, and financial. That, we believe, is unique to our firm because we want to make sure that we have all of that accomplished prior to presenting the shortlisted candidates to you. And then, in addition, we also believe that this sets us aside. We ask each of the candidates that we're going to present to you to create a 9-minute video. 3 questions, 3 minutes for each question. And then we work with you prior to that, determining what you want to see those questions to be. Normally those questions evolve from what we learned from you and from your stakeholders. So now we have all this material. We have the application materials, we have all the references that we've checked, we have the formal background checks, and we have the video. And then we will come to you and we will present candidates that we believe best meet your requirements, your criteria. Now that usually ranges between 4 and 6 candidates. However, some boards do request that they want to see all the applicants as well. And we will provide that list to you so you can see all of the applicants. We can provide an explanation as to why we narrowed it down to 4 or 5 or 6 candidates that we presented to you as who we feel best meets your needs. Once you view all of that material and those videos, you determine who you want to interview. And then we work with you in determining what you want the interviews to look like, what processes you want to follow in terms of your interview, and we'll work with you on developing interview questions. We contact the candidates, we set up the interviews for them with you in terms of the date, the time, the venue, etc. Now, there is a crossroads there in terms of what some boards do and what some boards wish to do in a different way. Some boards wish to have and conduct completely confidential search, which means we present the candidates to you, 4 to 6 candidates. You choose how many candidates you want to interview. You have a first round of interview with those candidates, and then you set up an interview for 2 or 3 finalists, and it's all done through you as the board. Some boards choose to do a very transparent interview process, whereas you interview the candidates that we present, perhaps 4 to 6 candidates, and then between that session and your final interviews, you identify what 2 or 3 candidates you want to select as finalists. And we have them meet with a representative group from the stakeholder groups that we meet with in the county. And we work with the stakeholder group, probably about 20 people, across all the cross-section of all the groups that we've met with. And we coach them and make them understand, to the best of our ability, that their purpose is to be advisory. They're not selectors. And that's additional information that we collect for you, and we provide that to you prior to you conducting the final interviews. You conduct the final interviews, and you choose your candidate. Of course, it's between your board president, your board attorney, and your board, and the candidate's board attorney in terms of negotiating the contract. However, we can be also helpful. Finally, what also helps us and stands aside from other firms is that we have phase 5, which is included in your proposal. Once you choose and select your final candidate and approve that individual as your next superintendent, we stay with you for the entire following year. And we will work with you in terms of developing performance objectives, evaluation processes for the superintendent, talk about roles and responsibilities, and we check in throughout the entire year. A little bit about me. I was a superintendent for 21 years. I served as superintendent in New Jersey and on Long Island in New York. My last district was Sewanee Central High School District. It is a district of 5 comprehensive high schools, the largest central high school district in the state of New York, right up against Queens, where Belmont Racetrack is located. And I've been doing services with the firm now for going on 7 years. And again, I gave you some of the background in terms of some of the searches that I've done. So that's an overview of the process. The fees are included in your proposal, but it's not to exceed 26.3, but that's including expenses. And we can normally really minimize the expenses as best we can as well, in terms of trying to get that fee down lower if needed. So that's an overview of the process. It's your search. We believe in modifying our process to best meet your needs. We take a lot of pride in having very positive relationships with our boards. I did mention that purpose that I worked very closely with Lynchburg, Dr. Mark Tinsley. He and I were on speed dial at times, having conversations about what Lynchburg needed from us and what we needed from them. We do not publish anything in terms of vacancy notifications, anything without your approval. Once we do get all of the stakeholder information collated with the survey, we share a draft stakeholder report to you, and we ask you then to read it, give us the approval to post that on your district website and on our website as well. That's important because we want to share that with candidates, and it's important so that your stakeholders know that we clearly heard what they said and responded to their concerns, their issues, etc. So it's a very detailed process. We ask you to identify a point of contact in the district. It's also great to have, if you have a communications director or your IT director, I know is helping you out here today. That person is very important as well because they help us with your website, designing a tab on your website, to make sure that everyone in your county knows exactly what's occurring in the process so that there are no surprises. We take a lot of pride in making our boards of education that we work with look really good in their communities. That's important. So I'll open it up for any questions that you have.
You mentioned a couple of times, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you mentioned a couple of times that some of the searches were really good searches and other searches were just searches. What makes a really good search a really good search?
In my experience, what makes a search a really good search is that the Board of Education is collaborative with us. We communicate regularly with all of you, so you all get the information all of the time. And that there's great clarity in terms of what the criteria are that you're looking for in your next superintendent. And that we then advertise, sell, and recruit, especially candidates that are particular to your position. I was a superintendent who was in searches on the other side where I was a candidate, and very often I felt like I was part of a group of candidates, like a stable of candidates that was moved to one district to the next to the next. That's not what we believe is important. We specifically recruit candidates that are particular to the districts we work with. I've also found that when districts include the stakeholders in the process, those searches turn out to be exceptional. For instance, Sarasota, Florida, pretty big district, about 40,000 students at the time. They chose to have their state, well, Florida's a different story because Sunshine State, so when all the applicants apply, regardless if they're going to be interviewed or not, their names get posted on the district website and their names get posted in the newspaper. So there is no confidentiality. However, we did have 4 finalists meet with a group of stakeholders, and those stakeholders provided feedback and input to the board, and that turned out to be very positive because the board took all that input and hired Terry Connor, who's still there, doing exceptional work.
Thank you.
Dr. Ferry, I had a question about the stakeholder input. You mentioned that you have it typically laid out in step 2 after the criteria are set up, although we could switch that. If we keep
Yes.
it the way you suggested, how is the stakeholder input incorporated into the process if the objectives are already
That's a
set?
great question. And I've had that question even from stakeholder groups. When we meet with them, they'll say, well, why are you meeting with us now when the job has been posted and the criteria is developed? Well, first of all, the criteria that we developed with you generally is very broad, okay? And we found that it's very congruent with what the stakeholders look for as well. But what we use is that stakeholder report to really help us when we are evaluating the candidates, having screening interviews with candidates, okay, because we want to make sure that the 4 or 5 or 6 candidates we present to you all meet the requirements that you have, but will also fit the needs that are shared with us in terms of the stakeholder needs. I'll use, again, Lynchburg as an example, or I'll give you another example. Just finished the search with Dr. Deborah White. She and I did a search in Greene County, Georgia. And the board said to us after we presented 4 candidates to them, that we've made their job very difficult, because they had a very hard time deciding between the four candidates. So and then the other thing we do is we want to make sure that the candidates have really examined the stakeholder report and clearly have done their research on the district prior to when we're interviewing. Because it's important that they understand all of the issues, concerns, and that they want to be aware of if they want to be successful.
Thank you. And I had one other question about the stakeholders. You mentioned how we would have an option to keep the search completely confidential and the candidates would only meet with our board, or there would be another option where it wouldn't necessarily be confidential, where they would meet with a wider group. Is there a way to have our candidates meet with, select individuals outside the board and still maintain confidentiality, or does that not really work?
So far, I think I've been very fortunate. We do ask the stakeholders to sign a confidentiality agreement prior to that meeting. And, look, that's only as good as the paper that it's written on. But because we do know in education, people tend to sometimes reach out to other districts when they find out where the candidates are coming from. So what we do is we coach the candidates also, so that they have a clear understanding that at the point that they're going to meet with the stakeholders, they really need to have a conversation with their current district where they are working, so that there are no surprises in the event there are issues that come up through different stakeholders reaching out. It's worked out very well that way. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Do you ever have a case in the interview process where your clients, a board, asked to get some of the superintendent's presentations, budget presentations, end-of-year reports to see their quality and level of presentation ability?
Yes, we will work with you on that as well.
Great.
We have, we worked with, I want to say it was Amherst Pelham in Pennsylvania, where they requested for us to develop a performance task for the superintendents to come in and do and conduct a 15, 20, 30-minute presentation to the board when they were during their interview process. So we can do that, and that can be very effective as well.
Okay, thank you. Here's you seem to be very successful in what you do. What was the biggest disaster search you've had?
I just had a recent one. I don't want to say it was a disaster, but I'll explain it to you. We took the risk of accepting the search in East Ramapo, New York. East Ramapo, New York is just above the New Jersey-New York border. There are 41,000 students in East Ramapo, New York. Only 9,500 students attend the public school. The other 30,000 plus attend private schools, yeshivas. And we just felt that it was important to work with that board. And what even made it more challenging was the district was under state monitoring. So we worked through the monitors, through the board, at stakeholder meetings with the community, and we presented what we believe to be two exceptional candidates to the board. It's not a job that most people were, jumping toward accepting. And unfortunately, the one candidate withdrew, and the other candidate, who was exceptional, the board just felt like that candidate was being thrust upon them by the commissioner in the state, and that was absolutely not true. We selected that candidate, and he would have been exceptional. So they chose to reopen the search.
Okay, thank you.
But that's a very good example of one that was challenging. We don't shy away from challenges.
Have you done
And on the other
searches?
hand, I'm sorry, on the other hand, we had I'll use Amherst Pelham as an example. Amherst Pelham, right outside of Philadelphia on the main street, on the main line, we had 32 applicants, 17 of which were sitting superintendents. 2 were commissioners of education that wanted to get back into the public school. And they had an extremely challenging time selecting their final candidate. And they did hire the Commissioner of Education from Massachusetts, who was a sitting superintendent for 10 years prior to that. So our successes are exceptional, but we have run up against a few challenges.
Have you done searches at this time of year, like, starting in July?
Yes.
Okay.
It depends on what your timeline would be. I know you had mentioned that you have an interim in place now.
Correct.
And how long do you want the interim to remain in place? Are you looking for a January 1st start? Are you looking for a July 1st start next year? Depends on when you see the best time for your next transition from your interim to your permanent superintendent. We can work with you in terms of modifying whatever you wish to do that. It would be very challenging to get somebody on board between now and September, permanent. We could try, but that's, I don't know that that's something we want to do.
Well, we start in
It's up
August.
to you.
Yeah, we start school August 12th here, so we know it won't be for the start of the year.
You know, realistically, we would work with you on identifying when you believe the best starting time is, and we back off of that. On the same token, we need to be flexible, because if we identify, when we start advertising, 4, 5, 6, 7 exceptional candidates, you're gonna wanna move the process along. For instance, Greene County, Georgia, they're, out of the 4 candidates that we presented to them, their number 1 candidate received another offer 2 days before their final interviews in Michigan. And he decided that he really wanted this superintendency, so he decided to take that position in Michigan. So they lost out on an exceptional candidate. So we do want to move the process along as well.
I do believe for us, though, we have an interim superintendent who can only do up to 6 months. So we have to
Okay.
find somebody before 6 months from July 1st.
Right, yeah, because I know there are regulations in Virginia in terms
Right.
of that.
Right. Well, and yes, and he specifically, and then also at day 120 is when we'll report our progress to the state with this. But
Yes.
yes, our plan is hopefully to do this, thoroughly, as swiftly as we can also.
Well, timing would be perfect, because we could begin phase 1 in July, and then once you start back in school in August, we could do the stakeholder meetings. Because we're gonna wanna meet with teachers, administrators, support staff, and most importantly, we wanna meet with students. We wanna meet with high school students and middle school students, because the students give us outstanding information and feedback in terms of what they believe to be as important.
Are there any additional questions for Dr. Ferry? Thank you so much for your time this evening, Dr. Ferry.
Thank you. What's your timeline in terms of making a determination, in terms of which firm you're gonna work with?
Well, we have one more group to hear from this evening, and then I'm not sure that our board will be able to decide this evening, but we do have another meeting next week on July 2nd, so we're
Okay,
gonna be
very
hopeful.
good. If there's anything that you feel I didn't answer, and you have any questions, please shoot me an email. I'll respond right away to what your questions are, what your concerns are. But we very much look forward to the opportunity to work with you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for taking the time on such short notice.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next one is gonna be at 7:30, so we have about 5 minutes. Hi, I'm Kristen Pence. Can you guys hear me okay this evening? Dr.
Good evening.
Dr. Brown and Dr. Shook. Am I saying your last name correctly?
Wow, yes, right out of the box, thank you.
It's good to have you here this evening, and you guys will both be presenting from HYA, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. We can hear you, so
Okay, are you ready for us to get started?
yes, please.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to meet with you here this evening. We know this is a very important decision that you need to make, to choose the group with which to work on this important project, which will impact every child in the district. And we are really very honored to be presenting to you today, and we hope to be the people you work with on this, like I said, this important project. What I'd like to do is start by doing quick introductions of our team members here, then go through the process, talk a little bit about the steps of the process, and then make sure we leave plenty of time to answer any questions that you might have. Does that sound like a good plan?
That sounds perfect. Thank you so much.
Great. So I'll start. My name is Monica Brown, and I am a senior associate here at HYA. I'm going to dig a little far in my past, so please forgive me, but I did grow up in Prince William and Fairfax counties. Graduated from Fairfax County from Lake Braddock High School. And then the reason I'm saying this is because then I took the route through Front Royal many times to get to James Madison University, where I spent 4 wonderful years in Harrisonburg. I started my career as an educator in Lynchburg, Virginia, where I loved teaching there. I did move for familiar reasons and spent most of my career as an administrator in New Jersey, principal and superintendent. The last just about decade of my career before I retired, I was in the same district, worked with changing boards. I loved what I did. But again, for familiar reasons, my mother was ill, so I decided to retire, and move to Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. So currently I'm sitting in Delaware, and I work for the University of Delaware as my day job. So I work at the graduate college, and I run professional development and executive education programs for corporations, nonprofits, and government entities. So, but being an associate is is my passion. I love to work with boards. I love to meet candidates and try to match them to boards, or find good matches for boards and for divisions. Before I turn it over, I just want to say that I've been doing this since 2017. I've led and been a part of many teams from as far north as New Hampshire to as far south as South Florida, as far west, southern part, Mississippi, and northern Ohio. So I've kind of taken the whole eastern seaboard, and what I've noticed is that no search is exactly the same, and no division has the exact same needs. So what we do is get to know you, get to know the division, get to know your needs, and make sure that we find candidates who you will enjoy meeting, who have the same values that you have, and can meet the challenges that you're going to need to meet in the next several years. So now I'd like to introduce you to my partner here, Doug. Bill and Stacey Adams are at another meeting tonight, but they will also round out our team. And then we do have someone actually in the Tidewater area, Chuck Marzano, who would be a contributor, so that would round out our team. So, Doug, if you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Monica. Can you guys hear me okay?
Again.
Okay, and thank you, board members, for inviting HYA. You may be wondering why a person who lives in Connecticut like myself is part of this team. I think my history is a little bit different than Monica's, but maybe more relevant to our discussion tonight. I did spend almost 30 years, most of my adult life, living and working in the Commonwealth as an educator in 3 different districts. And maybe most importantly, I spent 11 and a half years serving as the superintendent in Bedford County. We raised our 2 daughters in Bedford County, and we're proud to do that. And we actually still have family connections there. I have a sister that lives in Falls Church, and a daughter and a granddaughter, beautiful granddaughter, who live in Lynchburg. My wife is a teacher, high school teacher, taught in Virginia, and my daughter teaches in Lynchburg City Schools, just like Monica did. I've got some other things in my background that I think are germane to your thinking about bringing us on as your search partner in all of this, but I'm going to wait until Monica goes through the phases because I think it'll be more important to share that at that time.
Great, thank you, Doug. So, HYA, we have 4 phases to the search process, but as I like to stress again, no search is exactly the same. We don't believe in cookie cutter searches. The first phase is engagement, and this is where we start by speaking with you as a group to do a planning meeting. And this is where we get to know your needs, and we put a plan together. We give that plan to you, which includes a calendar. We get all of our dates set. But this part of the engagement is very important because, as I said, no 2 searches are the same. So we come up with a specialized plan for you based on your needs, based on your timeline, and based on your the type of search you'd like to do. Public or confidential, that type of thing. As part of the engagement process, once we talk to you all and get to know what you want to do as the search process, we then ask to engage with your community. And at the planning meeting, you would give us as many different groups as you'd like us to meet with, and we would meet with up to 24 focus groups, town halls, and we encourage you to not only ask us to meet with the typical groups, your administrators, groups of teachers, groups of parents, but also we invite you to ask us to talk to groups who might be vocal in your community, who might have some concerns. This is a great opportunity for you as a board to allow their concerns to be heard and documented as part of the search process, and we will represent you well and make sure that everyone's concerns are heard. After we meet in our focus groups, town halls, and individual interviews with each one of you, this is all through our engagement phase, we do a survey, an electronic survey. So we try to get opinions and thoughts from all members of your community, and we give them many ways to do that. What we do at the end of the engagement phase is we create 2 reports, actually 3, I'm sorry. The survey report you'll get, and then what's called the leadership profile. And the leadership profile is where we take all the information that we've gathered. We ask all the focus groups the same questions, that we find themes that have been stated by your groups, the priority order, and we present that back to you as a leadership profile, which includes the third part, which is a list of desired characteristics. Now, once you all have read, we've discussed, and you are comfortable with this leadership profile, which includes the list of desired characteristics and the survey data, and you know that that's been from engaging with your entire community and in as most effective way as we can, then those documents really become the foundation of the search. Because what will come out in these meetings is what challenges you're facing, what are the values of the division, and what would you like to see in a new superintendent? And that's where we really start the recruiting. We represent you, the board, and try to find people who will fit your needs, not the other way around. Even though we know many candidates out there, and we've had the opportunities to speak to many, we finished the Hanover search, I worked on the Hanover County, Virginia, the Falls Church, I've talked to a lot of people in Virginia, but what we do is figure out what you need in Warren County and then go out and seek people who would be a good fit. And so that's the engagement phase, and it ends once you adopt the leadership profile. And then what Doug and Stacy and I will do is then start the second phase, which is the active recruitment. And these are one of the things, in addition to the engagement, which we think HYA, really that's a standout service that we do because we take the time to get to know so many different organizations within your division and really try to hear what they have to say. Another standout for HYA is our recruitment process. We actively look at the challenges that you're going to face. We look at the desired characteristics that you agree you'd like to see. We bring together the values that we've heard are important to your county. And then we go out and seek out people who have experience meeting those challenges, who have demonstrated the values and the characteristics that you're looking for. And I think this is one thing that really separates HYA from other organizations who I'm sure do very good searches, so I'm not disparaging them, but I think this is really something that we stand apart. In fact, we did a little bit of research at our headquarters, and about 75% of the candidates that eventually are selected by boards over the last 5 years have been people that we've reached out to, associates have reached out to and said, hey, this is a little bit about Warren County. This is why we think it would be great to work there. Why don't you apply? So we're seeking people out rather than simply managing the applications as they come in. So about 75% of our current superintendents that we've helped to place were actively recruited by associates like Doug and myself. So we work to match those characteristics to reflect your values in your community. And we think that taking the time to get to know the community during the engagement phase and recruit based on what we've learned has led to really, we've got a 94% rate of superintendents that are placed under with our facilitation who serve out at least the first term of their contract, and many of them have renewed after that. But we think we do that because it's a good fit. So I want to turn it over to Doug now to talk a little bit about Virginia recruiting, since he spent so much of his professional career there.
Yes, thank you, Monica. And again, just to reiterate, 75% of the candidates that HYA is having selected by boards are ones that we brought through this active recruiting process. And we believe that's one of the aspects of our entire search process that really makes us stand out amongst the others. So what I bring to the table in this aspect is a few things. One of the things I did as a superintendent, I think probably because I was there for so long, is I ended up rotating through the officer ranks at the Virginia Association of School Superintendents, VASC. You're probably familiar with that association. It's a pretty tight-knit community, and so I was able to serve as secretary-treasurer, as president-elect, and eventually as president. So I got to know all the superintendents in the state, and I'm still actively involved. I'm still a member of VASC as a retired superintendent. I actually attended the VASC Spring Conference in Roanoke this past April. So I'm also meeting the newer superintendents. There are, I believe, 3 active superintendents in Virginia right now that worked under me in Bedford County that have now moved on. And a host of other folks who aren't superintendents yet, but would probably make great superintendents. I also taught at Longwood for 4 years as an adjunct in a program that prepares principals. So I guess what I'm trying to say is my network in this active recruiting phase is pretty extensive, and I think it will give us a leg up, because I think where sometimes boards will struggle, and search firms will struggle, quite frankly, is in spite of all the planning, they're kind of stuck with whoever applies. And in our experience, that just isn't going to bring those candidates to the forefront. And just to remind, this isn't just a blanket sending emails or phone calls to everybody we know. This is a targeted recruiting based on that leadership profile, what you've told us you want to see in your next superintendent. So now I'm going to turn things back to Monica to move, I believe, to the selection phase.
Yes, and just to sum up the recruitment, we use that leadership profile. Really, we create kind of a matrix out of it, and as we're vetting candidates, we use your guidelines that you've told us what you're looking for, and we're having constant conversations as a team about who we've interviewed, we call their references, we talk to people who work with them, and what we bring to you in the next part of the process, the selection part, is we like to bring you a slate of candidates. Now, during that planning meeting, you all will tell us what a general number you'd like slated. We usually recommend between 6 and 10. Anything more than 10, it gets a little bit, the process gets bogged down because it's hard to remember who's who. Board members have to, it's difficult for us too. But what we do is we slate the candidates who most align with experience meeting similar challenges to those you are facing, values, and desired characteristics. And we bring you, if you tell us to bring you 10, we bring you the top 10. If we have an 11th that we just need you to see, we might say, hey, can we bring 11 instead of 10? But we try to stick to the guidelines that we come up with during our planning meeting. And we bring to the slate meeting the candidates. We provide you with all the information beforehand. Many of our boards that we're working with now like to know everybody who applied. I'll give you an example. In a search we just did, we had 68 people apply. We slated 10, but the board really wanted to know, just for their own knowledge, who else applied. So we provided a spreadsheet with who else applied, and then we went through very quickly at the slate meeting just reasons why each of the other people weren't slated. And of course, the board at any point can say, well, we'd like to see that person anyway. So it makes sure that we try to make sure that if the board wants information on every candidate, that's fine. But we've worked with a lot of boards who say, listen, this is what we're paying you to do. Bring us the best candidates, and then we'll look at it from there. So when we're going through the selection process, another thing that I think sets us apart here at HYA is how much we're involved in helping to facilitate the process. You aren't left alone. I remember when I was a superintendent, I had a friend who was on a board, and they worked with a group that just gave them the resumes and said, these are the 5 people we think you should interview, and they walk away. That's not us. We will work with you with the slate, with protocols, so that you all can collaboratively decide who to interview. Usually we recommend 5 to 6 interviews. But coming down to who is going to be interviewed, we use some protocols that allow you to express your opinion. But as you know, some boards, and really across the country, there's been some difficulty sometimes getting boards to agree on things. But we have some protocols that allow everyone to give their opinions without necessarily having conflict. So we have some great protocols that we'd love to use with you. Delphi, Fistify, we have many that we can do. And then we narrow it down. We then take that leadership profile, especially those challenges and desired characteristics that you want to see and values, and we help you develop questions. We will write the script. You all will get to see, we share it all as a Google Doc. In fact, we share the entire search, all of the processes. We create a shared folder. Go back and forth with the questions until you're comfortable with what questions you'd like to ask during each round of interviews. And then one of us will actually make sure all the candidates are aware of the logistics. We'll do all that work, prep work. We will be with you during the interview process and make sure you have everything you need. And then after the interviews are complete, we will work to facilitate that narrowing down and eventually selecting a candidate. And we think that that's something that's very important that we do. We work with boards, like I said, all across the country. No 2 boards are alike, no 2 boards have the same issues, but we have worked with boards to use protocols that no matter what the makeup of the board, we can help facilitate collaboration and coming to consensus around a candidate. And then once you've done that, which I have no doubt you'll be able to do, then we will help you with the negotiations process. We'll help your school board solicitor or attorney. Again, having Doug on board, who's so familiar with superintendent contracts in Virginia, we'll make it, but we are with you the entire way. And even after you announce the name of your new superintendent, and hopefully you'll be collectively celebrating this particular hire so that you can support that person and the goals, then we will also work with you with the 4th phase, and that's the transition. And because we've gotten a chance to get to know your community through the engagement process, all those focus groups and interviews, survey, town halls, all those things that we've done, and we've developed that leadership profile, what we find is that the transition, if the board allows us, we provide the selected candidate with all the notes from all the focus groups, all the notes from all of our interviews, so they have a good sense of what's going on in the community. Then we help you all in a transition meeting to set goals for the superintendent for the first year. Because it's in our best interest if that superintendent is successful, and we try to help make sure that you all agree on what that person should focus on. Because let's face it, you can't do everything, so you help to prioritize it. And by the time the transition is complete, our goal is to have that new superintendent with specific measurable goals for his or her first year, so that you're all working together. Just like a good strategic plan is all aligned toward the same goals, that's what we try to do with the board and the candidate, now the employee, now the superintendent, to make sure that that first year is a success. So those are our 4 phases: engage, recruit, select, and transition. We believe that we can help you through all 4 phases and make sure that you come out on the other side of this process together, supporting a person who can move the division forward. So I'd like to ask if you have any questions on what we've talked about.
Do you have any recent examples of a time you failed in a search?
When you say failed to do a search, you mean they didn't hire someone?
Yeah, or that it was somehow the wrong pick, something went awry.
Well, I was not on this search, but during COVID, we were doing the state of Maryland search, and the state board decided to put it on hold during COVID, and then HYA came back after COVID, and I actually led that search. So that was considered not a failed search, but a halted search, and then they went back and did it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
As far as you're concerned as individual board members or collectively as a board, is there anything that you think would make this search, I want to say unique, that would help us as we're trying to plan to do our best for you?
Probably the time of year, right? I mean, is that?
I have to tell you, I've done searches at all times. What we will do when we sit and put the planning, when we have the planning meeting, we will put a calendar together, and we will tell you, well, if you give us this long to recruit, this is probably what we can give you. If you condense that, we can work with you to either shorten searches, give full time for different parts, but again, we would collaborate with you. I will tell you that there's no perfect time to do a search. Some people say, we want to appoint as of April so that they can be there in July. But there's no perfect time to do a search. Every time has its advantages. If you're off cycle, so to speak, you actually get more attention from potential candidates.
Could I add as well, Monica?
Sure.
I don't know if the question is related to maybe being on a tighter timeline. That's my sense, just because of how quickly all of this has happened. One of the things we can definitely do, I don't know when you all plan to make a decision on the search firm, but I know that our team would be committed to scheduling that planning meeting as soon as possible. I don't want to speak for Monica, but I know I could be available in the next week or two if a decision was made, say this evening, and it was us and the contract was worked out. And I think scheduling that planning meeting as early as possible, again, you would all have to be available as well as our team, that's when you can really nail down that timeline. And why I think that's important is your community may be looking very hard at you right now about, okay, you've hired an interim, but how long is he going to be there, and what is your plan? I think tonight is a good first step, but soon those critics out there, I assume you have 2 or 3 in the county, they're going to be after you, and whether it's us or another firm, we would just be prepared to start as soon as possible, and then you tell us what your timeline is so that you can collectively tell the community that.
Also, yeah, that's a good point, Doug. And we typically, we like to guarantee that within 10 days of the signing of the contract, we'll have a team meeting with you. If you can meet, we'll meet. Also, as Doug said, sometimes there's some people who are watching the process very carefully, closely, maybe critiquing the board as a whole. We've worked with many boards, and we can provide press releases. We can come to board meetings either virtually or in person and give updates to the to the board, but in front of the community. We wouldn't recommend that you bring candidates in front of the entire community. We can talk about that later, but we definitely will help you to keep your community up to date. And even though they might not know who's being interviewed at any given time, they would know where we are in the process, they would know the timeline that's expected, and they would feel like they had a say because they participated in the engagement phase. So we have a whole communications toolkit that can help your whoever's in the central office who's doing that to make sure that the community is involved, and we as associates will give as many updates as you want to your community.
Thank you. Are there any other questions this evening? Thank you both for joining us, and especially on such short notice.
Oh, not a problem.
Thank you.
Do you all have a timeline of what you're thinking as far as when you're going to make a decision?
Well, we're going to have a little bit more conversation this evening, and then we meet again next week on July 2nd. So we're not sure if it'll be tonight or maybe next week, but we're really hoping to make a decision hopefully within this week or so.
Great. Well, like I said, we're willing to jump in and get started as soon as you are, and we hope that we're going to be getting to know you each better, getting to know Warren County better, and really helping you to find that person you need to go on for the next, hopefully, decade, working with you all to make the division as best it can be.
Great. Thank
Yes,
you
and
both.
I would like to thank you as well, and make sure that you know that you've got all of our contact information in the proposal. And as you're making this decision, if questions come up that you didn't think of tonight, please feel free to follow up with either one of us or any other members of our team.
We will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I do, yeah. So that's the last of our presentations this evening, so yes.
This motion is made that this open public meeting of the Warren County School Board become a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711. The school board desires to discuss the following matter in a closed meeting. Section 2.2-3711A29, discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offerers, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract. Where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically a superintendent search firm contract.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Mr. Valentine, could you do a roll call, please?
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Dr. Funk?
Aye.
Madam Chair?
Aye.
Mr. McFadden?
Aye.
Mrs. Salins?
Aye. According to the votes recorded by the clerk, the school board of Warren County does hereby certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered by the school board.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Could you do a roll call, Mr. Valentine?
Yes. Mrs. Salins?
Aye.
Mr. McFadden?
Aye.
Madam Chair?
Aye.
Dr. Funk?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Thank you. And we're adjourned.